Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 285, Another Single Pane of Glass. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live show where we discuss the ins and outs of running your computer repair business. Computer Repair Podcast is brought to you by Ninja RMM, the simple-to-use remote monitoring and management solution. This is all the tools you need in one place to provide preventative maintenance to your clients. Try it free at ninjarmm.com/10off. Let me introduce the co-host. We have John Dubinsky from the Maven Group. How you doing, John?
Aloha. Good to be here, Jeff.
Good to have you. Next in, we have Rick Smith from Renactus Technology. How you doing, Rick?
Doing good, Jeff.
And a newcomer to the show, and we're always happy to see new blood on the show, Adam Carpenter from IT Professionals of Iowa. How you doing, Adam?
Good. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Good to have this great group here. We are going to talk about a lot of cool things today, but let's start off with our normal tips and tricks section. And John, go ahead and kick it off.
All right, everybody sit down, take a little break. First of all, I did not get my homework done. I have some good excuses. First one is I forgot that this was the weekend. I was heading over to do a little masterminding with Paco LeBron in the West Loop in Chicago. Shout out to Paco. It was a really good week. We got a lot done. A couple of quick links, and I'll turn it over to somebody else. Dave Greenbaum put a great thing in the CRP channel regarding how not to waste your time at another pointless conference. And I thought that was a great link just to bring up with our little ITO Compass conference coming up here in August. Hope to see everybody there. I stumbled upon something that I once thought was worthless, but really worked well for me this week, the Microsoft Safety Scanner. Have you guys heard of this? It's a little tool designed to remove malware, kind of like the countless other things that I've run. But what surprised me this time is I ran about 3 or 4 other products, and then just for fun, I ran this, and it found a bunch more stuff. So I thought that was interesting. Use at your own risk and enjoy if it works for you.
John, that safety scanner's been around for quite a few years now, hasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
The unique thing about it is it only, when you download it, it only is good for like 10 days, and then it won't work on your PC because you got to keep updating it, which is wise. That's the way they do it. But yeah, worked great. Like I said, I don't know why I downloaded it and tried it again, but use at your own risk, and hopefully it'll work for you too. Bradford Torrey stuck something else in the CRP group that I thought was really cool. The Microsoft Windows and Office ISO download tool. I know there's already a Windows 10 ISO download tool, but this tool will download ISOs for 7, 8.1, 10, and many Office versions as well. So that was high five on that. I thought when you need it, that's good to have that. And then the other thing I stumbled upon was a link. I had a customer struggling with some Wi-Fi issues, and I wanted to get some more information based on the wireless connection strength. So I found a little a tip or a command line prompt you can do to actually get the percentage strength instead of just the bars. It'll tell you that you have 86% or whatever. So I will toss that in the show notes as well as the chat. And that's my list for this week.
Awesome, man. You bring the big guns as usual. All right, Rick, you are up.
Okay, quick tip, something I'm sure we all know, but sometimes the simplest explanation or the simplest solution you should just go with. I put this out on the Facebook page. I had a client who I had to go and basically were running out of space on their hard drive. So all I did was take my my Goblin, go from a 250 gig hard drive to a 1 terabyte drive. All I'm doing is imaging the drive over, copying the drive over, put it back in. Somewhere along the line, she calls me the next day. I put it in, just assumed it worked, tested everything I thought I would test, and it worked. So she calls me the next day. She's like, hey, I can't get in Internet Explorer, and one of my programs won't open. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So I go back the next day, basically chasing a rabbit, trying to figure out how to get Internet Explorer to work. Doing all these things, 100 things, spend the whole day there. I can't figure it out. Go back home. So I'm going to remote into the system tonight. Spend half the evening. Still can't figure it out. So I put it on the Facebook page. Someone says, hey, don't screw around with it. Just go ahead and do it's Windows 7. So go ahead and do a repair install. It'll put everything back. Something's obviously missing. It'll put everything back. I'm like, I don't want to do a repair install. I want to figure out what the problem is. So I go back the next day. Spend all day on the same problem. Comes to find out later, John, I know you commented on this as well. I never checked. It was something with the .NET framework that screwed up. And so I said, finally, okay. I've spent 2.5 days on this thing and I still can't get it right. So now I'm going to do the repair install, which I did. I had to reinstall other .NET. So basically, my tip for sure is sometimes you can't be too stubborn trying to figure out a problem or trying to just, serve your own ego being determined, because I lost 2.5 days. A client, unfortunately had, it's a big office, so she had another place to work while I'm working on this. But at the same time, I cost myself some time and I cost her some time when I could have basically took, a couple of hours and did it the right way, or did it the way I didn't want to do it, which was the repair install.
That's a great tip too, because I think sometimes people forget, and we probably all need to do this because we've all done the same exact thing. But one of the things that we probably need to do is put a time limit on a repair. Once you get to a certain amount, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, whatever your limit is, just cut it off and go, you know what? Enough's enough. We're not going to figure this out, and we're going to repair it. As I tell everybody, or all my customers, is that everything is repairable up to and including replacing the piece of equipment. John, you going to say something?
No, it's funny that Rick brought that up, because Paco and I just did something like that this weekend. He is a customer that they're in a shared space. So each office cubicle, we'll just call it, is on a separate VLAN. So they can't talk between the VLANs. And if they wanted to be able to talk to VLANs, the place charges, I don't know, an outrageous price, like $500 extra a month to do the setup and all this kind of weird stuff. So Paco and I are standing there. I said, well, we could probably set it up on this side, get 2 wireless things, bridge them, because there's glass. I mean, they are right next to each other. If it was my office, I'd say we just put a little hole through the wall, but that won't flow and all that, and we're talking about it. We're pricing out some equipment. And I said, then I'm walking over to the office and I see, well, why don't we just run a cable underneath the doors and right around the wall, and we're done. So that's what we did. So sometimes it's just the simplest things staring you in the face. So don't over tech it when you can just plug it in.
Awesome, man. All right, Adam, you are up.
All right. I was just to add on to that. It's so easy for us as techs to spend way too much time on something because our mindset is, I just want to fix it. So, but a quick tip that has been said time and time again, but it's important. When you're getting started out, if you have the ability to work another job at the same time while you're getting started, set your prices high where they need to be from the start. It's very hard to raise them. And if you can do that from the start, you can really weed out the problems. You get the good clients from the start, and you can build a big base, because most of us, myself for sure, when we got started, we took anything and everything that came through the door, and it caused us way more hassle and held us back more than it took us forward. So do your research, get your prices right from the start, and start with good clients if you can. And it's much easier if you have income already. If you don't, your situation may be different.
That's a good piece of advice there, Adam. So that's kind of rolling into my tip for the week, and my tip's going to be a little more, maybe kind of sort of a rant. As everybody knows. Yeah. And not unlike myself. Anyway, so one of the things is I want to say is the tip for me is be true to yourself. And what do I mean by be true to yourself? You don't have to do your business like everyone else. And the reason this comes up is because I see this time and time again from inside the business and outside the business, from many different Facebook groups and people asking questions, which is always good. Here's the thing. If you want to do or try something in your business, just try it. Go ahead and do it and see whether or not you like it. But if you don't like it, you can move on and do something different. A lot of times, and here's where this stems from. A lot of people will say, break fix is dead. We need to move on to the MSP, which in some cases that might be true. But I also know a fair amount of people out there that make all their income from break fix. And that's fine. Because here's the thing you have to realize. Whether you're doing a managed services model or you're doing a break fix model, there are pros and cons to both. The problem is nobody on either side wants to talk about the cons. They just talk about the pros. So you have to realize however you're going to do your business, the way you like to do it is going to work perfectly fine. Yes, some things you have to work a little bit harder at to get going. Sometimes you got to prime that pump, and that's fine. But just understand that you can do business any way you want. But here's the other thing. You have to try things in order to know whether or not you like it. Don't just listen to somebody else. If I tell you that break fix is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and that's what you base your whole business on, then you are a fool. If I tell you that MSP is the only way to go, and you got to push that break fix aside, and you just got to be an MSP because that's the popular thing right now. Again, if you listen to me, you are a fool. You need to figure out what it is you're going to do and what it's going to work for you, because every individual is different. And there's a lot of people that love doing residential work. They love doing the break fix work because they can get in, get out. Yes, it's different all the time. That's maybe a positive or a negative, depending on who you are. And then other people, they like managing the businesses, but at the same time, they're always on call. So it's hard sometimes for those people to get away. Break fix model, you can do enough where you can get away for a little bit and then come back in your business. So anyways, I just want people to understand that there is no wrong way of doing business. There is your way that is going to work for you. And so I think everybody needs to remember that, and don't just get swayed by the masses and everybody just jaw-jacking and talking about what the best way is. Now, there are certain caveats to this, and Adam brought up a good point about pricing. In pricing, here's the thing. We have to realize we are experts in our field. No matter how we do our business or what we do in our business, we are experts. We always will gain knowledge, hopefully, as we go along and become better at it. But here's the thing. You have to remember that you should be paid as an expert. And Adam hit it right on head, because here's what we've all done at a certain point. We've started off with low prices, and it is so hard to raise those prices afterwards. Now, I will tell you that that's kind of, sort of. A lot of times I have doubled my rates on things because I was so extremely low. And you know what? I lost a bunch of customers. But here's the thing. I kept the customers I wanted. I dealt with less people and still made the same amount of money. Actually, most of the time made more. So that's something to keep in mind. Anyways, that is my rant for today. Just be true to yourself and understand that there's many different ways to do this business, and it's okay. All right. So let's take a quick break and we'll get into our main topic. Our show today is brought to you by Ninja RMM, the easy to use, single pane remote monitoring and management solution to help you become more efficient, more productive, and more profitable. Ninja RMM understands what you need to help your customers, which is why their RMM solution is integrated with tools you use every day. With Ninja RMM, you can have faster fix response times and offer preventative maintenance to your customers. Ninja RMM provides patch management, antivirus, email, and SMS alerting. You can be up and running quickly with minimum training time. Everybody wants that. Plus, there are no contracts, so you can focus less on stress and more on customers. It's also integrated with tools like TeamViewer for your remote support, backup using Cloudberry, antivirus using WebRoot, and many more. You have network visibility inside your RMM, easy to read dashboards, and a powerful device search to create custom queries and export the list to keep your customers up to date on the hard work you do for them. You also have an executive style report showing important system metrics such as health score, software added or removed, hardware changes, and TeamViewer connections, which is good because if you say, hey, where did that program go that I installed last week for doing this? And they say, oh, I didn't uninstall that. Well, you can look right into the program and see what has been uninstalled. Ninja RMM is offering Podnutz listeners a free 30-day trial, and when you decide to buy, a 10% discount. Take advantage of this offer. Go to ninjarmm.com/10off. All right, our main topic for today is a single pane of glass possible, or is it another pie in the sky dream? And who wants to kick this one off?
I'll go.
Go ahead, Adam.
I would say that at this point, it's not possible, but I would say that at this point, you can certainly combine a lot of things. So you can get down from, let's say, 5 or 10 to 2 or 3. At least we've been able to. So we use Repair Shopper and Central, and then we use Ubiquity products for networking. So we have a controller for that. So we have those 3. With N-Central, our RMM, we have our backup, we have our managed antivirus, we have our patches. They do have a ticketing system that we don't use yet. We don't feel it matches Repair Shopper. So then we have Repair Shopper. So we do our ticketing in there. We do our customer management. We do all of our billing and invoicing through there. And then for our managed network products, we have the Unify controller. So we have 3, and we've certainly had higher when we had different products. So it's nice to get down to 3. At some point, we may get down to 2 if the MSP manager ticketing system from Enable can match Repair Shopper. We may move to 2, but at this point, it's not likely in the near future.
Okay, that's a good start. John?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what Adam said. I think it's kind of like a unicorn at this time. I don't think it really exists. Now, if you happen to choose an RMM product, I guess I'll pick on SolarWinds maybe, and you like their complete software stack, meaning everything that they're doing from their Nmap controls to their antivirus to their backup, and you don't feel you need anything, and you can use their PSA product and their ticketing, you might just be able to fit it into one pane of glass if all of that is all you need. But, I just did a quick count. I have 5 panes that I watch right now, just based on the products that I use and that I look at. I'm a Ninja RMM client, and I also use a Repair Shopper. So one of the things Paco and I did over this weekend was to truly try to see how much we could get into Repair Shopper so that we could maybe monitor just from there and not have to look anywhere else. I mean, we got pretty close, but still, you still got a bunch of pop over to other things to do some of the controls and some of that kind of stuff. But as a Ninja, I think what we're seeing is the service providers like Ninja, like SolarWinds are really, they're on a race. They're racing to integrate or get as much into their products as they can or integrate with other products. Like Ninja just added Cloudberry Backup, which they're calling Ninja Backup. It's still in beta. So I still have my Cloudberry control panel, which I still have. I use Malwarebytes endpoint protection. That is not integrated into Ninja, although I purchase it from Ninja. So I have another control panel for that, so on and so forth. Adam said he uses the Unify web controller. I use the Overseer web control. So that's another panel I have to look at. So, at this point, working all that magic, what we did or what we're looking at is all those notifications come into email. So what I do is I pass them on to Repair Shopper so that I can kind of use Repair Shopper is a single pane of glass. At least that's my starting point.
All right, Rick.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to agree with the crowd because right now I don't see it as possible. I'm looking to, I have 5 that I'm looking right across my favorites bar on now that every morning I'm checking on. Kind of similar, exactly the same as what John's doing. Repair Shopper, Ninja, Malwarebytes, Cloudberry. I check my Midnight Pro. And there's one other I'm missing, but now I do know, I don't want to reiterate what's been said. So I know that Ninja and some of the other RMMs are doing their best or doing it, taking the opportunity to try to integrate some of these so that we can go to a single pane of glass. But then something happens in between. Like I will say this, I know that Cloudberry is coming to Ninja, but the pricing for it you have to also take into account because the pricing is a little different than what you're paying now. So I guess you're going to have to go with that cost versus convenience or cost versus value. You have to evaluate that as well. So is it worth it for me to not click that extra pane of glass to put it all together? So, it's those things we got to evaluate as well. But I guess until one company swallows everything up, which would then kill innovation, I guess. But I think we're going to be stuck, or we're going to be looking at a bunch of things, and we just got to figure out our ways to get it done that way.
Okay.
Well, a great example of what's happening in our industry is just looking at some of the big boys. So Datto and Autotask merged, and they did some research and found that they changed the name of the Autotask RMM to Datto RMM. It's the exact same product. They just renamed it, but they left the Autotask PSA as Autotask PSA. So, again, they integrate, they work together. There's nothing different, but, I just think we're seeing in the industry this acquisition and integration. What I would like to see, which I think would help a company like Ninja, would be, I don't need a full integrated stack, but I would like to see the reporting in my RMM more. Maybe like, so with Malwarebytes endpoint protection, I don't need the full integration in there, but if Ninja could pull in maybe just the reporting features of what my pane of glass is telling me so that I could see that under the endpoints, and then I could maybe click a link to get to the Malwarebytes pane of glass to do the rest, just so I don't have to go check somewhere else. I don't need to be able to do all the controlling and all that from within my RMM product, but just maybe a little bit more info. And I think that would be easier for them to integrate from a programming standpoint than trying to integrate the entire product suite into it. My 2 cents.
And I think part of the problem with what's going on here, I use 7 different panes of glass, so to speak, and I'm looking at the way these companies work together. And the problem is, a lot of times you have a product that's out there that's doing one thing and they're really, really good at it. The problem is they start either acquiring or get acquired by another company who may or may not use that product to a certain extent, but it never seems like it's like everybody's the wild, wild west and they're just out on their own and they want to have the best product available. So they might even start integrating other products that are the same as what maybe they've acquired or changed over. So it becomes this real confusing thing where people are trying to put everything under one pane. But the problem is it's very painful. Not to be funny, but the reason it is because, number one, it's software. We've talked about this before. Software is hard and things don't want to communicate with each other. And then I think a lot of times there's holdouts as far as companies. I don't think they want everything to communicate exactly the way it should, because I think in the grand scheme of everything, people are out there and they want to have that. They want to have the ultimate control. And so somebody out there at some point thinks they're going to be able to get to a point where they can control everything in that single pane of glass. The problem is I'm with these guys. I don't think it's possible. I don't know if it's ever possible. And here's the other thing. We talk about this all the time. Jack of all trades, master of none. Here's the problem. You've got a bunch of different companies that are out there. And literally, if you have 5 products that are installed in one product, and you can look at those things, here's my guarantee to you. 2 of those products are stellar. The other 3 suck, or they're just enough. They're just tolerable enough to deal with, to not jump ship. But if you want the best of everything, a lot of times you have to separate those things out. But from a business standpoint, that doesn't make our lives any easier, and it kind of sucks.
To add on to that, normally you have these products, and when they build them, they have no thoughts of joining them with something else anyway. So they're built separately from the start. So getting them to work together is a pain for one. But then you have politics and culture on top of that. Just if you go to opposite sides of the U.S. alone, how they're doing things, and then you try to merge them together, especially on a larger size company, oh, well, we're doing it this way. Oh, well, we're always used to doing it this way. And then products get stagnant and fall behind. And yeah, I think, part of the problem is if you try to do everything, you're going to do it mediocre at best. So.
Yep. No, that's a good point. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Again, everybody wants to, whether it's about making money or notoriety, and most of the time, here's the honest truth, human beings are human. And most of the time, notoriety will always trump money. Always. I don't care who you talk. No, being known out there is much better than just having boatloads of money. Now, the chances are a lot of times both are hand in hand. People usually have both, but it's, at the same time, if a person's going for one or the other, they want to be known out in the space. That's more important to them from an ego standpoint. And so Adam's right from that standpoint. The politics and the egos that are in place that really They want things to work together, and they all talk a good game about being there for the customer, which is us. We're the customers. We're the business owner customers. And the reality is, a lot of times, I don't think they do. And again, not that they're doing anything nefarious or wrong. It's just the way human beings are. It's hard to separate from that.
I would think that my first thought is what John said is I would want the reporting at least to be somewhat together. So I'm not getting email from A for your antivirus, B for your backup, C for your this, or D for your that. If I could just get all of that to one place, and John, I think you said in the RMM. Personally, I would like it in the ticketing system, so that way I can, it's all in one place. If I need to create a ticket for it now, Repair Shopper does a pretty good job of that, so we can push a lot of things to it. And I guess that's where the big issue is, because you get, 10 different emails at any given time for stuff, and so you got to go check this, check that. I got to go to this dashboard to check to see what that is. Go to that dashboard to check what that is, and that's where it becomes a real cluster.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That's a pipe dream right now, because even a lot of the dashboards I'm in with the products I use, the reporting is horrible. Like, they want me to dump a CSV file of some sort of report, and then what am I supposed to do with it? I got plenty of time to fool around with that in Microsoft BI or Google Data Analytics or something, and create something pretty that my customers might actually look at. I was just saying in the chat that I want my vendor partners to save me time, not create more work for me. I don't want to have to take the time. I'm paying you, just have some pretty reports, make some PDF reports that will automatically send out either to me or my customers, and build your product so that it's compliance based, so that the reports that you get are satisfying whatever all of us now need to deal with compliance, whether that's PCI, HIPAA, whatever it is. I mean, I find it hard that any of us are going into businesses that don't have some sort of compliance anymore. So, I mean, I think we should hold our vendors accountable for that as well.
Well, and it almost sounds to me, as I'm sitting here thinking about this, it sounds to me like we're almost looking at, we need basically a dumb box that can pull in all the information. It's almost like, I don't know, a server and workstations, let's say. You have to have that one central location where everything is stored, and you're able to view it from that one panel. And no matter what panel you're on, at what station, you can look at that information. And so it seems like it's doable. But at the same time, I think, as Adam has said, and I think others, is that the culture just does not want that to happen for whatever reason.
Well, Harry has a good point in the chat too, that if you've got all your eggs in one basket and there's a problem with that particular basket, I mean, you're going to be in trouble as well.
That's true. That's a good point.
There are enterprise products available to aggregate all of this data. The problem is you have to have a dedicated person or team to manage just that part of it. So you really got to pick your battles. What can I really put up with, and what do I need?
That's a good point, Adam, because a lot of us, it's either one person shows or with a small handful of employees. We have to look at it from a standpoint of, do we have somebody we can dedicate to that particular thing, watching dashboards, making sure everything's done? Because if we don't have that person that can do that, we are the people doing that. And that's where, so I guess from our standpoint, we are looking at something that, I don't know, is something that we would make our lives easier, and maybe really the powers that be out there don't care about that. Anything else? I mean,
it really comes down to there's a saying, if you wait for perfect, you'll never do anything, or something to that effect,
Right.
And it's the same thing. Get it to where it's functional, it's as good as it can be, and move on. If you spend all day trying to get all these products, and I know the running joke is John's tried all of them, so pick what works for you.
Adam, it's your first time on the show. Come out, be respectful.
All right, respect my elders. I get it.
Oh, it's like Brad Pretorius here. Jeez.
But anyway, get down to a few that do what you need and work on your business. Otherwise, you'll just chase your tail all day long.
Well, so JD in the chat says, well, we figured it out on this time. We can move on to the next show.
So what are some of the things that we can do when it comes to looking for the single pane of glass? Obviously, we've all come to the conclusion that it's not available. It's not there, right? But what is it we can do as a business owner to be able to mitigate the amount of time we're spending in these systems? Is there anything that we can do in our businesses ourselves?
Well, I'm no longer friends with Adam, but I think his point's good. I think you got to choose the low-hanging fruit, and automate what you can easily just to get that off your list. So it might be only saving you 5 or 10 minutes here, but at least you don't have to worry about that anymore. And then you can move on to the stuff that maybe you can't automate. And then maybe embrace your vendor or poke your vendor and say, hey, it takes me so much time to do this. Either help me, what's your solution for this? Or maybe you need to move on. That's
a good point. I like that.
One of the basics we can go back to is there's groups like this one. There's the Facebook group. There's Technibble. There's all these places where you have hundreds, if not thousands, of people that have tried these things. So you can get a basic understanding of, okay, this is what they provide, and you can count out things like, let's say, for example, I'm looking at RMMs. Well, for example, I like Bitdefender. Okay, well, these ones don't list that, so I'm going to take them off my list for now. And you can kind of narrow down that way as well. Just by talking to people. Sure, you're never going to get the full story until you do it yourself, but if you can narrow it down, you don't spend a whole year trying 15 of them.
John. Sorry. No, that's a good point, Adam. You really, I think you hit the nail on the head there, because a lot of times we're our own worst enemy. We want the best things out there, but we do have a criteria that we follow. Right. And it's whatever products we're used to or we've used in the past have worked well for us. Those are products we're going to use. And if somebody's not offering that product in their service, then we can knock them out of the way and go ahead and go with another product. And again, I like that too, because from a standpoint of maybe you need to list out what your priorities are. If you can list out what are the most important things when it comes to taking care of the customer, then you can figure out what things are important. So I've got a list of, let's say, 10 things, and the top 3 have to be stellar. The other 7, I can, as long as it works pretty good, I'll be okay. And maybe that's how, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I'm just saying that sometimes maybe there's things that are really important that you need to do, and there's things that are not as important, would just be nice.
Like reports, for example, reports are brought up often, and sure, when I'm looking at tools and I'm like, oh, that report looks really nice. The reality is my customers doesn't care what the report says or what it looks like. They're just going to ask me. So reporting on my side, if I can deal with it, it's fine. Another point is having all tools in one basket is a problem. And I agree with that. For example, I want my RMM and my ticketing tool to work together. Right now, they're basically separate. Those two together would be great. On the other hand, my Unify controller, I don't want my networking stuff integrated with that so much. Maybe if I could get alerts in the ticketing system for, hey, this is down or high bandwidth or whatever, but I don't necessarily want all 3 of those products under the same company. So it is kind of nice to have some separation.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead. You're up.
No, I think it's a great point, and I think one of the things is I'm personally not advocating for one company to do all of these things. I just want them to somehow be able to talk. I'd still want, again, I'm going to use what I think is going to be best for my business. If that means I have to go to 10 panes of glass every day, then I'm going to go to 10 panes of glass, because that's what helps my business grow. That's what I'm going to use. But I think my goal would be to figure out some way, or hope in, is to get them just to talk so I don't have to see them all. But I guess I listen to your point, Jeff, and you prioritize what's important. As far as backup goes, I'm going to check it in the morning and in the evening. So, normally during the middle of the day, it's more important for me to know for my RMM if a hard drive is going down. So that's a higher priority to me than whether the backup works in the middle of the day for, the 10-minute SQL run or whatever. So I guess it's my hope would be at some point I can get them all to speak or all go to the same place. I kind of the programs that allow you to classify the alert status, I send them to one email. So if something, something's a high priority that signifies a high priority, I send that to a email address that says alert. So when those come in, I know I have to pay attention to them. The rest of them are really just, small. Some things are stupid. I don't think that the RMM or anybody should be reporting anyway. They just come in and tell you something useless. But so that's the way I try to prioritize it. So every place that allows me to classify it, I send to that one email address. So I know when that email pings up on my phone or on my computer, I have to pay attention to it. So again, I'm not looking for that one magic product. I guess looking for something that would work. I guess I can't even think of it now. Slack. I guess is it Slack? No, not Slack. I can't think of it now. But the one that has all the integrations and Repair Shopper uses it as well. It sends information from Repair Shopper to your Office 365 to create a contact. What is that called?
There's Zapier.
Zapier. That's what I'm talking about. Right. So I mean, something where I could just send a message and it goes into one place. It would be great. So for now, my way around it again has just been creating that priority email address, that alert email address that makes me know I have to look at that. The rest of the stuff, I can check at night. It's not going to kill the system if they miss a third-party update that day or something like that. So that's not a major issue for me. But that's it. That's my point. I'm just not.
So it almost sounds like your single pane is your email box.
Yeah, basically, it has to be at this point because I would love to get it all in the Repair Shopper, but it just doesn't work that way. So, I just had to pick the best route for me. And it's like I say, you're gonna, in your business, it seems some of us are using a lot of the same products, and that's just because it works for us. But there's going to be a couple of things that you're going to choose that it just works for you for whatever reason. You can love it and I can hate it, or vice versa. And it just works for your business, so you're going to use it. And that may mean you have to take that extra step of another pane of glass.
Now, John, with that comment, we know that you've basically lived in the email universe with that single pane of glass for your business for many, many years, for many, many different things, correct?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, email is the hub of just about everything that I do. Even for ticketing, because the tickets that I don't pass through, the automated tickets come through and go directly into Repair Shopper for me from like the RMM and all that other stuff that I monitor that I pass through. But clients still email me and I pass the ticket through to Repair Shopper because I'm not comfortable enough to try to turn on a ticketing system for my clients yet, because it has epically failed in the past because I didn't train them correctly from the beginning.
That's so cute, John. You think that your customers are actually trainable.
Yeah. Life is a fantasy.
Hey, you know what I do use though? I tell customers, the business customers, I tell them, hey, if there's a problem, you can create a ticket. I let them use the go into Repair Shop and log into their account, and you can create a ticket that way. So I let them do that. If there's an issue, because that way it cuts down on the emails and definitely on the phone calls. Because if it's not something that's an emergency, let them create a ticket and you can address it. Even if it's something that's,
the way I'm going to roll with that is using the system tray icon, I think, because I don't think I'd be able to get them to go to a web page.
We don't use the customer portal, but we do have the integration on our website for creating a ticket. But I would say 90% of our customers email us, and I tell them straight up, look, we're a small company, so if you call me, chances are you're not going to get me. Put an email in or create a ticket, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And they understand that because when I'm working at their site, I'm there. So clearly I'm not on the phone talking to somebody else. So that works for us.
Yeah, that's been my motto too. If you want help, email me.
And mindset can be a thing. It can be a hindrance to yourself as well. So I know Repair Shopper has the ability to email customers, when I reply to a ticket from within Repair Shopper. And I've slowly been trying to get myself to do that more because I do private tickets or private comments mostly. And then I go to Outlook and then I send an email out and I'm like, well, why did you do that? Now you got to copy and paste what you said into Repair Shopper. So I'm trying to get myself to put it all in Repair Shopper. More of a single pane of glass, I guess. Really, So
that's a good point. You're integrating what you can integrate, and then the other things. And I like your point earlier too, where you're talking about having the network hub separate from other things. And maybe this single pane of glass that everybody thinks they want, we don't really want. Because maybe from a business standpoint, maybe it doesn't really make much sense, especially for smaller businesses, unless you've got a whole team that, like Adam said earlier, that you can basically say, hey, watch this dashboard. Eat your lunch, play some Minecraft or whatever, but watch this dashboard. If anything lights up, take care of it.
Well, it's different if you can manage a call center and you actually have techs that work for you and all they do is manage the call center. That's how most ticketing systems were built, to work in that kind of way, not really for the solo tech per se.
That's good.
Well, and with some of the really large RMM tools, you almost have to have almost a developer within your company for all the integrations and putting it all together, So, yeah, you really got to know what fits your company. Just because it's big and shiny doesn't mean it's the best fit.
That's true. Yeah, we all know about shiny. Squirrel. Oh. So I guess from that standpoint, I think we've talked about a lot of things that you can think about from a business standpoint of how to do things. And, these guys have come up with some great things to think about, especially I had the same problem, Adam, with Repair Shopper, where I didn't want to put in the information from the computers I was bringing into the shop. And it really didn't take that long. And the other thing was, once I noticed that I was basically going in there, leaving a comment, it was automatically sent out. I didn't really have to call my customer. I didn't have to do anything with them because they were getting the information. As long as they were updated, they were fine. Now, John, I know from your standpoint, though, because I've been out with you in the field, and you will get emails in the middle of the day and kind of have to triage what you're doing and figure out which direction you're going to go. So,
well, I don't think that it's any different from anybody that's busy managing a bunch of clients. I mean, I just think that's how it goes. With 900 endpoints, there's going to be problems each day. You just got to try to manage it and triage it the best way you can.
But I think that's good because you were able to get your email no matter where you were at, whether a product that you were using actually had an app or whatever really didn't matter, because you were getting that ability to triage through your email and take care of it as you saw fit.
Well, I've been doing this long enough that email has always been the most reliable point to start from, meaning that even if I was somewhere where I couldn't get cell service, normally I would have maybe some sort of Wi-Fi access so that I would still be able to get email. Or in even some of the shops I work into now, there's no cell service in the building just because of the type of building it is or where I'm at. So, but I always have Wi-Fi. So yeah, email is definitely my go-to. And that's what all my clients have tried to train all my clients to do over all the years I've been in business is if you need some help, email me.
Okay. That's good.
That's just the challenge, because their first instinct is to pick up the phone and call you. And if you don't answer, if you're a solo tech and you're out in the field, you don't want to answer someone else's call while you're on the job, on someone else's time. So then they tend to just continue to call you back, or they leave you a voicemail. And training them to, like, that's what I said. I've been trying to get them to use the portal, but email me or something. I like the portal for the simple fact that then I have to go right back to Repair Shop, and then I can do everything from there. But it's just
a lot of the times, Rick, what I did is if they'd called and leave a voicemail, since I'm a Google Voice customer, I would just cut and paste that voicemail in, or I would send them an email back and say, hey, I got your voicemail. Here's what you do, and just poke them back from a ticket or from email so that they just know I've got it, to try to give them the clue that this is the way we should be communicating. Now, obviously, if they're calling and saying the internet's down and the building's on fire or it's flooded, I mean, that's a little different circumstance. But then I also say to myself, if the building's on fire, just step outside with your cell phone and send me an email. So,
Or make sure you get everybody out of the building, everybody's safe, and who gives a crap at that point? Oh my gosh. Yes.
That's another one of those things, like trying to raise your prices because you started too low. If you set the expectations right from the beginning of the relationship, it goes a long way, rather than, well, yeah, do whatever you need to get a hold of me, and then, 6 months or a year down the road, oh, well, we're going to change all of that, and you can only email me. That's a hard thing to do. It's also, depending on the size of the company, if you can get a single point of contact, that certainly helps as well, rather than trying to train 10, 20, 30, whatever amount of people. If you have a manager or something like that, and you can say, okay, you're the point of contact, everything filters through you, this is how you get a hold of me.
And that's actually, now most companies will have, you're right, either a manager or a secretary or somebody that can take that information and be able to do what that's what they do. They're that first point of contact before you talk to anybody else. They're kind of the firewall, so to speak. And it's easier to work with that one person. So that's definitely a good point. I'm just thinking, when it comes down to what we do in our businesses and the thought process that goes behind this, there's a lot of different ways that we can attack this, and there's a lot of different things that we can do to make our lives easier. And I'm going to say that, John, I'm kind of with you as far as the email stuff, because email seems, I can get it on my phone, I can get it on my computer. It's with me most of the time. And if it's not with me, there's a reason for that. And I don't really care if you get in contact with me. But most of the time, I can take care of the problems right on the fly, versus a voicemail. Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time, in certain situations, getting back to you right away. So that's definitely a great tip about sending an email back with, hey, got your message. Let's go from there. So, yeah, I guess I look at this, and this was one of those topics that it's hard to figure out what it is we want. And this is where I tell people all the time, is basically, we really don't know what we want until we really got it. And John, I know you've used a lot of different products, and I think you've come full circle and basically have said the things that you don't like and the things that you don't want. But it took a little bit of trial and error to get to the things that you said, you know what, this is not perfect, but this is what I have to work with, and this is the best thing I have that's going to help me in my business.
Yeah, I started out as a LogMeIn customer back when LogMeIn barely did anything, and used that for about the first 10 years of my business. And then at that time, a lot of the other products that were in the market, matured and the prices came down. So I jumped on what was Hound Dog at that time. Still use LogMeIn with that, and as my business matured and the type of client I used matured, I branched out and tried some other things. From that point, I went on and used Autotask, or what was called CentraStage at that time, for several years. And then that led me to the latest experiment that Adam's given me crap about, where, we talked about that I used some other products, trialed some other products. Ninja was one of them, moved on to something else. And, it just like you said, you don't want to take the squirrel moment, but it is very important, depending on the size of your business and how you're doing business and how you want to do your business, and what those things are that you need to meet, that you need to, look at other places if you feel there's other tools that will fit that mission more appropriately. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight, I guess is what I'm saying. You have to bring the right tool for the right job. And, you can't just be stuck in your own little way unless you really feel that product is using for you. You got to experiment a little bit. If you're a Windows guy, obviously you're going to run into Mac, maybe even the dreaded Linux, but, make sure you're using the right tools that fit your business for what you're trying to accomplish.
Go ahead, Adam.
And another thing, if you're going to, if what you have isn't working for you, or you think it's not working, make sure you properly evaluate what you're going to. Otherwise, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to try a different tool. You're going to have it for whatever their trial is, let's say 30 days. And, well, it's uncomfortable. I'm not familiar with it. I don't know how to use it. And so you end up back at what you had, which you hate anyway. So all you're going to do is waste time and money if you don't properly evaluate it. So you need to put it in place. Make sure you spend the time to do it right, so you do yourself a service and you can properly evaluate it. Otherwise, you have people that are either too busy or don't take the time, really you're just causing yourself more lost time and frustration if you don't properly evaluate, and you end up back at the tool you're trying to get away from to begin with. And it may be that the tool you're on to begin with is the best one for you, but you're not going to know that if you set up a trial and don't actually put the product into use.
Yeah, those are wise words. Make sure if we were talking about an RMM tool, just trialing that out on 1 or 2 computers is not the way to test an RMM tool. On your deployment, like I took about 20% of my deployment and moved it over to something else and used my tool to move it and all that. I think that's the only way that you can really get a good test. I mean, you're talking about one of the primary tools that you're going to use in your business, that your business is going to rely on. So I think Adam is absolutely correct, and you got to kick those tires big time.
Very good.
And I think one of the other things, just to add on, is back to what Adam said as well, is when you're going to evaluate, if you're moving or think you're not happy with the product, know why you're not happy with it. Because a lot of times we get something, we hear about something else. Oh, they have this, this, and this as well. So let's try that. So now we're thinking about moving. But then you realize that they don't have the things that were as important to you. Again, prioritizing what is most important to you. And then of the product that you have that you necessarily may not be happy with, what is it that you don't like about it? What is it so that when you go to the next stage to trial the next product, is this going to fit me because it has these things now that are priority to me? And a lot of times I know when I started, I went for the shiniest object because they told me this has everything you're ever going to need. And it did, but it had 100 things I never was going to use. So, again, you have to know based on your business, where you're going, what's important.
I like that. And I go back to an experiment that I was trying that John goaded me in 2 months ago, and that was using a single pane of glass, picking the Microsoft or Google universe. And unfortunately, for the things that I do, it was basically, I don't want to say impossible, but it was impossible. And the reason that is there are things that are weird that you can't even explain. And so I've used Google Chrome for a long time. I use not Internet Explorer, but Edge. And Edge works, well, I'll say 70% of the time. And here's why I say that it doesn't work 100% of the time, because I'll be in things like Repair Shopper. So for my business client or for any of my clients, if I am going to email them an invoice, if they were a remote service, I'll email them the invoice through Repair Shopper. Makes it nice and easy. If they're coming to pick up their device here in my shop, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to print one out. Well, yeah, I could get Google Cloud Print to work, but I never did. So I was like, hey, I'm not going to worry about it. What I'm able to do is I can look at the PDF and print the PDF right to my printer. Not a big deal. So it's a couple clicks, easy peasy. Problem is, you can't do that in Edge. For some reason, that part does not come up where it will let you print from inside the PDF. These are little things that happen. So I had to look at it and go, if you see all the things that are on my computer, it is all over the board because I have to have certain things for my business. I have to have certain things for my podcasting. I have to have certain things for, not so much my personal life, but personal things I do. I will still try to stay mostly in the Microsoft universe. But the reality is there are things that they're never going to work 100% well together. It's gotten better. And so even in my own life, I'm having to look at all these different panes of glass, even just from a business standpoint of doing paperwork, surfing the internet, and doing things I need to do online. So there's always going to be those weird things. How many people do we know? How many business customers or people in general that have had to use things like Internet Explorer because that's the only thing that would work with their bank, or that's the only thing that would work with Chrysler Corporation, or wherever they were logging in via VPN or whatever it was? They had to use those services because Internet Explorer was the only one that would recognize it and have the pop-ups and buttons the way that they were supposed to be. I can't explain why that is. I can't explain why Chrome can't just copy the stuff that Internet Explorer was able to do, or maybe they put some safety features in that makes Chrome safer, but at the same time, does not allow it to do the productivity things that we need to do on a regular basis. So
Have you tried the auto printer service?
No, I have not.
Okay. So do you know what it's from Repair Shopper?
Yes.
So okay. So
it's one of those things, Adam, it's on my list.
Sure. I had that because the Google Cloud printer or whatever didn't work well for me. So I did the auto printer. It wasn't perfect for me either. So it's very rare that I actually have to print something. So if I do the PDF thing too.
Okay.
I just open it up, print it. It's all good. But most of the time we're just doing email. That's what my customers want. But it is another option.
Yeah. Well, and and the only thing is that's being mostly home based, and when people drop off and pick up, it's just I could email them the invoice or whatever, but I like to have it right there on the spot. Hey, here's what we did, and it's kind of I use the invoice in a weird way too, because really that's kind of the receipt. So they get their physical receipt, whether they pay via Square or whatever, they've got that information there. But yeah, and again, it goes back to software is hard, and not everything is going to work exactly the way it needs to work, unfortunately. And that's just one of the things I think we have to figure out and be comfortable with. And here's why I say when it goes back to being experts in what we do, because again, just like Adam figured it out, I figured it out. Hey, we can print right from PDF. I don't have to go through setting all this other stuff up. I tried setting it up. It didn't work for me. So we were problem solvers and we were able to solve the problem. That's why we get paid to do what we do, because your average end user is never going to be able to figure that out, no matter how much they Google it or how smart they think they are. They just don't think in those terms. They just want it. Most of them just want it to work. Unless they fat finger or something.
They'll be quick to tell you how you should do it, though.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
I saw it on YouTube. It only takes 2 minutes.
At that point, I go, here's the keyboard. You have at it. Well, and it goes back to, that's why you should absolutely, I don't care what anybody says, you should pick your customers. If they're not good customers, get rid of them. It's not a big thing. It's no problem. Our friend Marvin B, he just let go of one of his largest customers in his business. Been with him for 18 years. 18 years. But guess what? His stress level went from way up here to way down here. And was that worth it? If you hear him, he'll tell you it was worth it. Now you see him on Facebook, vacationing in the Bahamas. No, I don't know. He vacations all over. I don't know exactly what he does, but he's having a good time hanging out with the family, doing things. And that's a good thing, instead of stressing out over one, large part of his business. All right. So have we solved any problems today?
No, but we raised some good questions, didn't we?
I think we just reiterated all the problems.
But I think in the process of having this conversation, we also came up with good solutions that, again, is why we do what we do and why we think the way we do. And sometimes this happens to us all. We all get stuck in that spot where we have the blinders on and we can only see in front of us. And it's hard sometimes for us to turn our head and look at something else. And in other times, it's not that hard. It's squirrel. And you're off in the distance. But for the most part, it's good to be able to have a lot of different ideas, because here's the thing. I'm a guy that will take something, and if somebody has created it, I can take that creation and I can enhance it and make it better, right? Now, as far as creating something, yeah, not so much. I'll throw out an idea, and I swear to you, this happens all the time. It's 4 other people. They go, hey, well, what about this? What about that? What about that? Hey, I like those ideas. Let's go with that. Those are, because a lot of times when you hear it from somebody else, you don't always have to be the smartest person in the room, right? You got to be able to understand what you're trying to accomplish. And if somebody's got a better idea, go with the better idea. It doesn't make any sense to sit there and do things the same way. Here's the problem in this business. Here's the biggest problem. Another rant. People in this business will sit there and do the same thing over and over and over again. Then they will cry and complain about it, which I absolutely 100% do not understand. It's like, okay, if this is a problem, then change it. Now, again, at the same time, there's certain groups of people that will talk back and forth, and that's fine. And sometimes you just got to get something off your chest, because a lot of times when it comes to the personality of the customer and how they think or how they do things or how they don't do what you ask them to do, it gets frustrating. So there is a healthy amount of complaining just to get stuff off your chest. But what I'm talking about is just the constant complaining, but still not willing to listen to somebody else's idea or willing to change. That's a problem, in my opinion. In this particular case, my opinion is right. So there's that. Anyways, all right, let's take another quick break. And then I'll tell you what, we do not have any emails today. But if anybody from the panel wants to bring up a discussion topic, or if anybody from the chat room would like us to, because we're a little early today. It's unbelievable. If you'd like us to, or want to ask a question, feel free to ask a question, and hopefully one of these smart individuals, not me, on the board will answer the question. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about if supporting this show. If you want to support this show, I encourage you to go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And what this will do is, for $1 a show, $4 a month at the most, it costs you less than a really good coffee. It will get you in a secret Facebook group where there are like-minded, good individuals that can help each other and talk in a respectful way and not make anybody feel stupid, as other Facebook groups do. Not mentioning any names. I'm just saying that. Anyways, that's a whole nother subject. But if you want a safe environment to be able to talk your ideas out, ask what you would, even if you consider it a dumb question, we have no problem answering these questions, because guess what? We all started at a certain spot. And as I will tell you, as I learned a long time ago from my good friend, John Dubinsky, the one thing he knows for sure is he doesn't know everything. Now, I'm not talking, I can't say that for me, but for him, the one thing he knows for sure is he doesn't know everything. No, that's a true statement. And if you live by that, that is a good way to be. It really is. I want to thank our newest Patreon supporters, Russell Reed and Wade Menard. I want to thank all of our current Patreon supporters for your continued support. We really appreciate what you're doing, supporting the show. We're glad that you're getting something out of the show that is helping you in your business. Even if it's not helping you, hopefully it's entertaining you, making you laugh, and taking the stresses of the day away. That's kind of why we do this thing. So it's a bunch of people sitting around the garage drinking our iced tea or beer or whatever it is we're drinking, and just hanging out. All right. So let's see. John, you said you got something? Oh, did I misread the message?
No. I was just saying I wasn't in the chat right now, so I just wanted you to eyeball it to see if anybody.
Gotcha. My bad. Anyways, yeah, it's, when you get the little tiny print that comes across the screen and it disappears on you real quick. Yeah. Anyways, old people props.
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
I need to get new glasses.
Adam, you're going to take the chat then.
Okay.
All right. All right. So this is for the panel. This is from Greg Foltz. I'm pretty sure it's Greg. Greg Foltz 1. For the panel, he says, you do a lot of work for a client because they are committed to being a long-term 1 to 3 year contract, but after you had them all set up, they cancel a month later. Do you back invoice them for the time you didn't charge because you figured you'd make it up during the life of the contract?
Well, my first question would be, if they're signing a 3-year contract, shouldn't there be a penalty to get out of that contract? That's the biggest thing. So that should already. All right. So you have your master service agreement. So that should have been in your statement of work of the contract that you did with them, that if they cancel early, that there's this penalty, with the understanding that, hey, that's my understanding when I go with a client. It is, I don't necessarily have a client, or a contract, but I expect at least a 1-year commitment. I mean, if it doesn't work out for each one of us, that's fine. But, they have the understanding that I'm doing a lot of work up front, and, that we're pushing that over a whole year term. But if you have a solid contract that somebody is, signing, then you should definitely have the terms in that contract so you can recoup your work, for sure.
John, I think part of the problem, though, is is who is going to actually go. Is it worth the time and effort to go after that contract? Or let me ask you this, in your 20 plus years of experience, do you kind of get a feel for the customer and whether it's going to be a good fit or not? And most of the time, it's not going to be, nothing's 100%, but most of the time it works out where they are a longer term contract with you than versus you set everything up and they're like, hey, see ya, sayonara.
This is a problem I have not really ever had. All of my clients I've been with for quite a long time. The partners that I talk to, it seems to fall into two camps. The guys that I talk to that do term contracts for 1, 2, or 3 years, that if they have their stuff in line and their paperwork is solid, it's not really an issue. If the other hand, if they're kind of fly by night and somebody's just signing some piece of paper that says, yeah, we'll do this for 3 years, sign here, then they run into trouble collecting. It really has a lot to do with how you're lined up. Because if you're going to have term contracts like that and you're going out, you can expect cancellations. So I would also expect that you would have things in place to do those collections and already have maybe a retainer on with a lawyer to say, hey, here's my contract. They signed it. They just canceled. Help me get my penalty back. Assuming that the client's not willing to pay.
Right. And I just I'm sorry to cut you off. I ask clients to say, hey, when we talk about it, I say, hey, I don't have a long-term contract. I tell everybody it's month to month for this exact reason. I don't want to work with anybody that I'm not comfortable with and I'm not happy with. And I don't want anyone to feel like they're, stuck with me if they don't like what I'm doing, because it becomes it's just a disaster of a relationship and you're constantly back and forth fighting. So I do say that any new contract I sign, it's month to month, but I ask you to give me 3 months. This gives us enough time for me to, at this point, iron out the kinks and what's going on in the system, because I'm never going to promise them we're going to get everything set up in a month, because a lot of times you can't. Depending on the size of the client, you'll be giving them all your time that month to get it all in line. So I say 3 months. And I figure it this way. In that 3 month time period, I will have gotten paid what it has cost me to set all of this up, to get it all into place. So if we can go with that gentleman's agreement that we're going to go 3 months, customer then gets a feel for me, I get a feel for them. We know at the end of that time, I don't never say anything. If we get to month 4 or 5 and say, hey, your time's up. If you want to quit, you can quit. I don't say a word, but after that, we're month to month. But then I know I don't feel at that point that I've lost anything, that I've lost any money, that they've paid me in that time frame, the time it took me to get things where they are. And 90% of the time, well, I haven't lost a client for that reason, but, I would say at that point, they're happy because they don't know what they didn't know. They don't know that things could have been as smooth as they are now. So then they're happy with it. As long as you're doing your job, I think a fair 3 month time frame, is a good way to make sure you recoup what you put into it, and also get that client to buy into staying with you longer term.
It also has deal with the nature of the client you're dealing with. An ultra small or a micro business might not be appropriate for a 3 year contract. A corporate client might be the perfect client for a 3 year contract. So you have to gauge that too. So, if you've got a corporate client that's got 100 PCs and doesn't want to manage anything, your scope of work and the paperwork and the contracts you need to have with them will probably be a little different than the mom and pop shop that has 3 or 4 computers, So keep that in mind as well.
That's a good point. Adam?
Yeah, so we're covered in several. So the first thing, other than one client, all of our clients have started out break fix. So we come in, and usually it takes a couple months for them to realize, it's better for us to be on a service plan. So by then, we're probably set up where we want to be. Other than that, I learned from Carl Palachuk from his, Managed Services in 30 Days, his book. Adds, moves, and changes are not covered under the plan. So we're getting paid if we're coming in and changing something or setting up new hardware or something like that. So we're covered that way. Our contracts are 1 year with a 30-day out clause, so they can give us 30 days notice. However, the contract states we have to have screwed up or not provided service. They have to give us 30 days to make it right. If they just decide, oh, no, we want to go with somebody else, or we're work with you or whatever, and it's not a good reason or a solid reason, our contract states they have to pay out at the end of the contract. We've never had to use that. Luckily they see that in there. We've actually never had a bad situation like that. So, but it is in there if it does happen. So those are really the ways we're covered in that type of situation. We don't. Go ahead.
So Adam just said, and the nice thing that Adam just said is he's got the good paperwork in line, so he's already taken care of business.
Right. Now, as far as enforcing the contracts, obviously, I think this is pretty much probably across the board. Most of us really don't run into those situations. I have a unknown policy that basically if a customer, especially from the residential side, is not happy with my work for whatever reason, and they complain and they want their money back, I'll give them their money back minus parts or whatever. But I don't, as far as for service, hey, if I've done something that you don't seem is right to you or whatever, you're not the customer I want to work with anyways. And it's not worth a bad review for a few $100s, to be honest with you. Just let it go and move on. And so I think a lot of times contracts can run into that same scenario where is it going to cost you more time and money to chase that than to go, you set up an expectation with a contract saying, I'd like to do this 1 year, but also at the same time, and I've heard this from many other different businesses, of writing something in there that gives you the 30 days out on either side, whether it's your side because they become a monumental pain in the butt, or on their side just because they're not satisfied with something. And the thing is, even if they continue to work with you, it's probably not going to be a great situation anyways.
Exactly. Like Rick had said, so we have all of these in our contract to protect us if it comes down to where we need to battle this out. Most of the time, if it comes down to it, we're going to say, look, we have this in place. This is what the contract stated. But in the benefit of both parties, we're just going to go separate ways and we're not going to deal with it. It's there to show them, look, you can't just mess with us and go somewhere else after we've done all this work. But we don't want the bad publicity either.
Okay. So. And I think, and that's probably a good, again, it's not something we advertise as businesses because, we don't want just people out there taking advantage of us. But at the same time, I think, and I've seen it go the other way too, though. I've seen people go, oh, hey, we're going to court. And it's like, wait. You just spent 4 times the amount of money to catch the few $1,000s that you were going to be out. And I'm a little confused of why that makes sense to you, but whatever.
Well, your business size may have some bearing on that. Like for me, being a small company, if somebody, if it gets public that I'm suing this client for whatever, or, like I said, I just don't want the bad publicity. It's better to walk away than it is even if you win. It's not going to look good in public typically. So.
Yep, I agree. All right, one of the things that Greg said also, he says, I usually give them 30 days to evaluate if they want to be a long-term customer, and there is a penalty, but it won't cover what I did to set them up. And I think this goes back to a lot of times I do the same thing. I charge you for the hours worked, period, in the beginning as a setup because that is not covered within the scope of long-term work. Then, like Adam, if they want to go for the long-term contract or the managed service, that we roll into there. But let's be honest. Nobody ever wants to admit this out here, but the reality is everybody usually, unless they're referrals from another company, come from a break-fix client. It's the way it works. Even though people will say that, they just fell out of the sky, but no, that's not it. So these are definitely good points. So yeah, 30 days to evaluate. Again, like I said, I would just set it up ahead of time and charge for work that you've done and equipment and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, in a lot of us from a smaller standpoint, especially, me for a 1-person shop, is like, I'm not buying equipment. The customer is going to hand me money or a check or something before I purchase any networking equipment or anything, because I'm not going to be on a hook for that. I just don't think you need to be in that situation. Like, let them pay you the money. Again, if they're trusting you to take care of their stuff, then they're not going to have a problem paying you out some money to get this stuff up front. So,
yeah, like I said, we do the break fix first. That's how we get called in, and we set the expectations at that point. Hardware and software are paid up front. once it's in our bank, we purchase it, and then if we go into managed services or contract, it's stated in our contract. That's how we do it as well. So everybody knows exactly how the relationship's going to be going forward. That's really more what our contract is about, setting expectations. This is what your part is. This is what our part is. This is what's covered. We have the 30-day thing in there where you have to give us a chance to make it right. But really, if it comes down to that situation, you're going to know well in advance that you're headed in a bad direction anyway.
I think so.
You
can tell by your customers.
Right. I would say, there may be certain situations where they don't tell you, there's a problem and they just keep it quiet. And then all of a sudden, oh, well, we want out and we found this other place. Well, okay, but the contract states you got to give us a chance to make it right. So,
and that's fair. Now, somebody was asking about your contract, or John was asking about your contract, or where'd you get it made at?
Yeah, so I believe it was a sample that Carl Palachuk had provided. I'm sure I paid for it through one of his courses or something like that, and then I just had it reviewed locally. So I don't think I'm allowed to share it. And everybody's area is going to be a little different anyway.
And not only that, I'm gonna give you 2 resources that you as a business owner need to go purchase as soon as you can. And Carl Palachuk's book would actually be one of them. I got it last Black Friday sale, and I think I got it with all the contracts and stuff like that. So I got his book. What was the name of the book? I forgot.
Managed services in 30 days.
Yeah,
managed services in a month.
Or in a month. Yeah.
There you go. So managed services in a month. Carl Palachuk. You can look that up. I think I got it. I might have gotten it. Well, no, I actually got it through his website. So we will put a link for that in the show notes so you can get that information. The other one would be the Technical Computer Business Kit. Also has the contracts that I have been using since 2010, since he had his first iteration of that contract. And again, Adam's smart. He got it reviewed locally. I looked at it as an intelligent person with the legalese and looked at it and said, does this make sense? And again, to me, there's always an out on either side, but I basically wanted to let people know that if you sign this, I am not responsible for anything. And I tell people that all the time, and they chuckle, but it's true.
I think it was Marvin's last show or the one before. He had a lawyer on there that does contracts too, so you could check that out.
Yes.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, Podnutz Pro. We'll look that one up. And
I saw that guy at the ASCII conference as well. He was very good.
Okay.
Very knowledgeable.
Very good.
I just saw in the chat that somebody had mentioned that they charge an onboarding fee. So that is something that Carl tells you as well. And so we have that in our contract stating that we can charge an onboarding fee. Usually for us, it's equal to 1 month. Truth be told, we don't use it. We use it as a bargaining chip. Hey, we've been doing break fix for a while. We recommend this. If you sign up, we'll waive the onboarding fee. Usually by then we got them pretty well squared away where we want them to be anyway, or at least a good start. So we don't need that onboarding fee.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. Again, a lot of times, and you can call it whatever you want, tricks of the trade or whatever, but there are psychological reasons of why you as an individual buy things. There's psychological reasons why we all buy certain things, because we either have a need or we have a want or desire or whatever. And so there are things that play into that, whether we want it to or not. And I like that, having that stuff up front. And then obviously, if you ever need to, if you've got a fresh customer coming in, again, to me, you're going to charge them money up front anyways to do any scope of work that's going to be outside your managed plan to get them from 0 to point A and then move on from there. All right. Let's see. All right. Any more questions from the chat room or anything from this panel here? Any thoughts from you gentlemen? Questions? Complaints? Nothing? All right. I think we have had a jam-packed show with lots of good information, and I appreciate all the interaction. I think we've come up with at least some things to think about in your business, and I think that's why we come together and share these ideas. And what a great panel to have, and a lot of same ideas, but little different takes on the ideas, which I really enjoy, because again, I can't think of everything, and I like having other people that you can bounce ideas off of. So that's why this is a great medium. All right, Adam, let's start with you. Why don't you give people one parting thought and let them know where they can find you at?
Sure. The best way to get a hold of me is email support@itproiowa.com. I am in the Facebook group, so you can find me there occasionally. Parting thought would be make sure you take time for yourself. Now, when you're starting out, I'm not saying most people can't afford to take a vacation, when you're starting out. You're barely getting by. But one thing you need to do is, whether it be after hours, weekends, whatever, step away from the work, even if you're just sitting on the couch watching TV. It's way too easy, especially if you work out of your home, to work all day, all night, all weekend. Take some time for yourself and your family, because it can certainly cause some problems if you don't.
Absolutely.
Wise words.
Yes. All right. And Rick?
Yeah, if you need to reach me, you can reach me at rick@renactus.com. I'm actually going to, as I've done a couple of times, but I'm going to ditto Adam's quote, Adam's words about taking some time for yourself. I think it's always good. We put a lot of energy into this business. Basically, everything we do is around computers, but you just need some downtime. Just, as you said, if it's to play with your kids, if it's to, watch TV for a couple hours, it's just something so that your battery can recharge and you can, come back to this fresh. Because I have spent a lot of weeks working 7 days a week, and then I'm burnt out. So I've learned I've forced myself to take a day at least, or a couple of hours, something that is non-business related, non-computer related, to get my mind off of this. And then I find that when I come back to it, I'm a little more recharged and ready to go.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you guys, I'm actually pretty charged up today doing this show because quite honestly, it is a lot of work, but I do enjoy it. The problem is everybody said a lot of times you get burnt out. Well, actually, I had today off my regular job. So I've been working 7 days a week for the last two and a half months, and not just regular days, like 12 hours a day. So it's been a long time. But today I was actually able to get up. I actually got up at a decent time. Instead of 5:30, it was 7 o'clock. And I was able to get some things done on a computer, hang out with the wife a little bit. And I played quite a few video games today, a little Call of Duty World War II, a little Quantum Break. And so that was kind of nice. And it's relaxing to be able to take that time away and do some things for yourself. So very good, wise words. All right, John, let people know where they can find you at.
John at mavengroup.net, and just glad to be here. And yes, labor of love, but make sure we take some time off. Amen.
Awesome. All right, man. So let's, if you guys want to come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/CRP live. Join in on the conversation by hanging out in the chat room. You can send an email to podnutz@podnutz.com, or you can leave a voicemail. Yep, you can call on your phone, 734-335-1000. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.